Description: by the 2030s, virtual reality had transformed the way humans learned and worked, creating opportunities and challenges that reshaped society. Follow Sarah, a struggling teacher turned VR innovator, as she navigates this brave new world. Chapter 1: A World in Transition. The year was 2038, and the world had changed in ways even the most optimistic futurists hadn't imagined. The global adoption of virtual reality had grown rapidly, thanks to advances in haptic technology, neural interfaces, and immersive 3D environments. Education and employment, two pillars of society, underwent a seismic shift. No longer tethered to physical classrooms or office buildings, millions now don sleek, lightweight VR headsets to attend lectures, collaborate on projects, or even perform delicate surgeries. Sarah, a 34-year-old middle school history teacher in Chicago, was one of many caught in this whirlwind transformation. In the past 2 years, her once lively classroom had become a virtual one, where students logged in from around the globe. They appeared as avatars, some realistic, others fantastical, but their personalities and questions were as real as ever. The system allowed for customized learning environments, from ancient Roman forums to fully interactive battle reenactments. And yet, for all its promise, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something vital was missing. Her most diligent student, Raj, often impressed her with his insights during VR discussions. But during a recent parent-teacher meeting, conducted in the lush, pixel-perfect gardens of Versailles, his mother expressed concern. "He's excelling academically," she said, her avatar shifting uncomfortably. "But he doesn't leave his room anymore. He's disconnected from his siblings, his friends, the real world." Sarah pondered this long after the meeting ended. Could virtual reality really replace physical connection? Was something fundamental being lost? Chapter 2: The Inciting Incident. One snowy January morning, Sarah received an unexpected email. It was from Vision Sphere, the world's leading VR company. The message was brief but tantalizing: "We're impressed with your innovative teaching techniques. Would you consider joining us to shape the future of VR education?" Her heart raced as she read the offer. Vision Sphere had pioneered much of the technology she used daily. Joining them meant she could directly influence how billions learned and worked, but it also meant stepping away from her students, the very reason she had entered education. That evening, she logged into her VR classroom and set the environment to the Athenian agora. Stone columns stretched skyward, and students' avatars bustled about, preparing for a mock debate on democracy. Raja's phoenix-shaped avatar caught her eye, perched on a marble bench. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "I heard from my mom you might be leaving us. Is it true?" Sarah hesitated, then replied, "It's a possibility. But nothing's decided yet." Raj looked down, his feathers dimming slightly. "You're one of the few who really gets how to make this work, you know. My cousin quit VR school because his teacher didn't even care if he logged in. But you make it feel real. Please don't go." The weight of his words stayed with her long after she removed her headset. If she left, who would advocate for students like Raj? But if she stayed, could she truly make the impact she dreamed of? The decision would change not only her life but the lives of countless others in the VR era. Chapter 3: Entering the New World. After days of internal debate, Sarah made her decision. She would accept Vision Sphere's offer, but with a condition. She insisted on retaining partial teaching duties to stay connected to her students. Surprisingly, the company agreed. They wanted her expertise and credibility as a practitioner in the VR classroom. Her first day at Vision Sphere was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Their headquarters, set in a sprawling virtual reality landscape, was unlike anything she had experienced. It was a shimmering, cloud-like city where the buildings floated and reconfigured themselves dynamically. Employees zipped around in avatar forms ranging from humanoid robots to floating geometric shapes. Sarah's guide, a Vision Sphere executive named Elena, appeared as a sleek, futuristic figure clad in translucent silver. "Welcome to the team, Sarah," Elena said warmly. "We've been watching your work. Your ability to humanize VR education is exactly what we need." Sarah was quickly immersed in her first project, developing an advanced VR module that could adapt in real time to students' learning needs. The platform would use neural feedback to detect confusion, engagement, or boredom and tailor content accordingly. This wasn't just about building lessons, it was about creating a system that understood and responded to human emotions. As Sarah worked, she began to see the immense potential, and the dangers. Vision Sphere's technology was so advanced that it could manipulate user experiences subtly. What if this tool was misused to promote specific ideologies or products? These questions nagged at her, but she buried them under the excitement of innovation. Chapter 4: The First Conflict. Weeks into her new role, Sarah started to notice cracks in Vision Sphere's vision. In one meeting, the head of product development, a brusque man named Victor, outlined plans for integrating microtransactions into the education platform. "Imagine it," he said, gesturing dramatically with his robotic avatar's hand. "Students could unlock premium learning experiences, gold-tier Roman gladiator battles, deep-dive lessons on quantum physics. Parents would pay a subscription for their kids to get ahead. It's the perfect revenue model." Sarah was appalled. "But education should be accessible to everyone. You're talking about turning knowledge into a commodity." Victor smirked. "Knowledge has always been a commodity. We're just honest about it." Elena pulled Sarah aside after the meeting. "I understand your concerns," she said softly. "But Vision Sphere is a business. If we don't fund our projects, they won't exist. Isn't a tiered education system better than none at all?" Sarah felt torn. She had joined Vision Sphere to revolutionize learning, not to create a new layer of inequality. That night, she logged back into her old VR classroom to clear her mind. The Agora environment shimmered into view, empty except for Raj's avatar waiting on a bench. "You're back?" he asked, his feathers brightening. "Just visiting," Sarah replied, sitting beside him. "Did you know they're adding ads to some schools?" Raj asked suddenly. "My cousin showed me, he has to watch a video before every class now. It's awful." Sarah's heart sank. Vision Sphere wasn't just shaping the future, it was controlling it. The question was, could she stop it, or was she part of the problem? Chapter 5: Escalating Stakes. Sarah couldn't ignore Raj's comment. The realization that Vision Sphere's technology was already being used in exploitative ways haunted her. Over the next week, she began digging deeper into the company's projects. What she found was both incredible and alarming. Vision Sphere was experimenting with fully immersive, government-sponsored VR education programs in underdeveloped regions. On the surface, it sounded promising, access to cutting-edge learning tools for marginalized communities. But the fine print revealed troubling terms. The programs were being offered at no cost, but the catch was that users would be subjected to mandatory, sponsored content tailored to their geographic and economic profiles. Some of it was harmless, ads for food products or consumer goods. But Sarah also found subtle propaganda messages embedded in the modules, nudging students toward particular political ideologies. Furious, she confronted Elena during their next meeting. "You can't manipulate children's minds like this. They're supposed to be learning, not being programmed." Sarah exclaimed. Elena remained calm. "We're providing opportunities where there were none before. Without funding, these programs wouldn't exist. Do you have a better solution?" The question stung. Did Sarah have an alternative? For the first time, she doubted her own resolve. But one thing was clear, she couldn't stand by and let Vision Sphere exploit the very students she wanted to help. Chapter 6, A Plan Takes Shape. Determined to fight back, Sarah reached out to a small but vocal group of educators and developers who had formed the grassroots coalition against corporate control of VR education. They called themselves FreeLearn, and their mission was to create open-source, non-commercial VR platforms for schools. Their technology wasn't as sophisticated as Vision Spheres, but it was built on principles of equity and transparency. Sarah proposed an ambitious idea: infiltrate Vision Sphere's advanced neural feedback system and adapt it for FreeLearn. If they could replicate the emotional and adaptive learning algorithms without the manipulative elements, they could offer a viable alternative to Vision Sphere's products. FreeLearn's leader, a coder named Matteo, was skeptical. "You realize what you're suggesting could get us all blacklisted, right? Maybe even sued into oblivion. If we don't act now, Vision Sphere will own education," Sarah argued. "They'll decide who learns what and how. This is our chance to change the game." Reluctantly, Matteo agreed, and the group began work on what they dubbed Project Aurora. Sarah used her position at Vision Sphere to discreetly gather information about their systems, carefully covering her tracks. It was a risky gamble, but Sarah felt invigorated for the first time in months. She wasn't just a cog in the machine anymore, she was fighting for something that mattered. As Project Aurora progressed, Sarah noticed a change in herself. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, a fire that had been missing since she left her classroom. But she also felt the weight of the risks she was taking. If Vision Sphere discovered her betrayal, she could lose everything. Chapter 7, The Betrayal. Project Aurora was nearing its final stages when disaster struck. Sarah's careful infiltration of Vision Sphere's systems had not gone unnoticed. Late one night, as she was reviewing neural feedback data in her Vision Sphere workspace, a sudden message appeared on her interface: unauthorized access detected. Her heart raced. She quickly shut down her terminal, but it was too late. The following morning, Elena summoned her to a virtual meeting room, a cold, sterile environment devoid of the usual Vision Sphere aesthetics. Elena's avatar appeared first, her translucent silver form now tinged with an ominous red hue. "Sarah," she said, her voice sharp. "We've been monitoring unusual activity linked to your account. Do you want to explain what you've been doing?" Sarah's mind scrambled for an excuse, but she knew the evidence would speak for itself. Instead, she decided to take a bold gamble. "I was investigating Vision Sphere's use of neural feedback to manipulate users," she said, her voice steady. "I can't be part of a system that exploits children for profit." Elena's gaze didn't waver. "You had such promise, Sarah. But this is unforgivable. We'll have to terminate your contract and pursue legal action." Before Sarah could respond, the virtual meeting room dissolved, and her access to Vision Sphere's systems was revoked. She sat in her physical apartment, staring at her now useless headset. The company had moved quickly, but so had she. Unbeknownst to Elena, Sarah had already uploaded critical components of Vision Sphere's algorithms to FreeLearn's secure servers. Chapter 8, The New Challenge. News of Sarah's dismissal spread rapidly through both the VR and education communities. Vision Sphere issued a press release framing her as a rogue employee who had violated company policy for personal gain. The backlash was swift. Many of her former colleagues distanced themselves, while critics labeled her a troublemaker. But FreeLearn stood by her. Matteo and the rest of the team accelerated their efforts to finalize Project Aurora, using Sarah's contributions to create a powerful, adaptive learning platform. They decided to launch the system with a global demonstration, an open-access virtual event showcasing its capabilities. The event, held in a vast VR amphitheater designed to look like a futuristic city, attracted thousands of educators, students, and journalists. Sarah, speaking for the first time since her dismissal, took the virtual stage. "Education is the foundation of our future," she began, her voice echoing through the space. "But it must remain free from manipulation and greed. Project Aurora isn't just a platform, it's a movement. A reminder that knowledge belongs to everyone." The demonstration was a resounding success. Attendees marveled at the system's ability to adapt to users' needs without invasive data collection or ads. A flood of endorsements followed, from universities to non-profit organizations. Vision Sphere, however, wasn't going down without a fight. Within days, the company filed a lawsuit against Freelearn, accusing them of intellectual property theft. The legal battle that followed was intense, with Vision Sphere's high-powered attorneys trying to crush the fledgling group. But Freelearn had something more powerful: public support. As stories emerged of Vision Sphere's exploitative practices, public opinion began to shift. Sarah knew the fight wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Aurora was out in the world, and people were rallying behind the idea that education could, and should, be free. Chapter 9, The Counterattack. Vision Sphere's lawsuit against Freelearn threatened to derail everything Sarah and her team had worked for. The corporate giant demanded not only financial compensation but also the dismantling of Project Aurora, claiming it was built on stolen technology. Freelearn's legal team, consisting mostly of pro bono lawyers and activists, fought valiantly but faced an uphill battle. As the trial unfolded, Sarah found herself at the center of a media storm. Interviews, opinion pieces, and debates about the ethics of education technology dominated headlines. Public sentiment seemed split, while many supported Freelearn's mission, others questioned Sarah's methods. To turn the tide, Matteo suggested a bold move: release a public demonstration comparing Vision Sphere's system with Aurora in real time. The demo would reveal the invasive data collection and manipulative algorithms underpinning Vision Sphere's platform. "If we show the world the truth, they won't be able to ignore it," Matteo argued during a tense strategy meeting. Sarah hesitated. "It's risky. If Vision Sphere catches us using their system for the demo, they'll claim we're breaching more laws. It could destroy us. And if we don't?" Matteo shot back. "They'll crush us anyway. We have to fight fire with fire." Reluctantly, Sarah agreed. The team worked tirelessly to create a side-by-side experience, one part running Vision Sphere's education modules, the other powered by Aurora. When the day of the demo arrived, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Thousands logged into the VR event, their avatars buzzing with anticipation. Sarah stood at the center of a colossal virtual auditorium, her voice amplified across the space. "Today, we're not just talking about education," she said. "We're fighting for the future of learning itself." The demo began. Users toggled between Vision Sphere's environment, plagued by constant interruptions for ads and subtle data prompts, and Aurora's seamless, transparent interface. The crowd's reaction was electric. Hashtags like #EducationRevolution and #FreeLearnMovement began trending globally within minutes. Chapter 10, The Turning Point. The demo was a resounding success, but the aftermath was immediate and intense. Vision Sphere released a statement accusing Freelearn of violating intellectual property laws and misleading the public. Their CEO, in a televised interview, painted Freelearn as idealists with no regard for legal boundaries. But Freelearn wasn't unprepared. In a surprise counterstrike, they unveiled a cache of internal Vision Sphere documents anonymously leaked by a whistleblower. The documents confirmed Sarah's suspicions. Vision Sphere had been embedding targeted political messaging into their educational modules and using neural feedback data for undisclosed purposes. The revelation was a bombshell. Governments and regulatory bodies around the world launched investigations into Vision Sphere's practices. Schools began canceling contracts with the company, opting instead to pilot Aurora. For Sarah, the victory was bittersweet. She had exposed the truth, but her personal reputation remained under attack. Vision Sphere's legal team still pursued her, attempting to bankrupt her with endless court motions. One night, as Sarah sat in her modest apartment reviewing the day's events, Raj reached out through the Aurora platform. His avatar, now a majestic phoenix in full flight, landed beside her in a serene virtual park. "Miss Carter," he said softly, "I saw the demo today. My parents did too. They're so proud of you, and so am I." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. "Thank you, Raj. That means more than you know." He tilted his head. "Do you think Aurora will really change things?" Sarah smiled. "I think it already has." As Raj logged off, Sarah sat alone in the virtual park, watching the stars. For the first time in months, she felt at peace. The battle wasn't over, but the seeds of a brighter future had been sown. Chapter 11, The Aftermath. The fallout from the Vision Sphere revelations reshaped the global education landscape. Governments that had once partnered with the corporation began scrutinizing their agreements, and some even issued bans on the use of its platforms in public institutions. Vision Sphere's stock plummeted, and its executives faced intense public backlash. Meanwhile, Freelearn and Aurora experienced unprecedented growth. What began as a scrappy coalition of idealists now had the backing of major universities, NGOs, and even some tech philanthropists. The platform's open-source model encouraged educators worldwide to contribute lessons and tools, creating a vast library of content that rivaled anything Vision Sphere had built. For Sarah, the victory was bittersweet. While she had been instrumental in exposing Vision Sphere's practices and launching Aurora, her name had become polarizing. To some, she was a hero who had stood up for students everywhere; to others, she was a rogue who had risked everything to undermine a corporation. One morning, Sarah received an invitation to speak at a global education summit held in a hybrid format, part physical, part VR. The theme was the future of learning, ethical innovation in a digital world. Despite her apprehension, she accepted. As she prepared her speech, she reflected on her journey. She thought of her students, like Raj, who had inspired her to dream bigger. She thought of Matteo and the Freelearn team, who had risked everything for their vision. And she thought of the risks she'd taken, knowing the stakes had been so high. On the day of the summit, Sarah's avatar stood before an audience of thousands, both in the real and virtual worlds. Her words carried the weight of her experience. "Technology is a tool, not a replacement for connection," she said, her voice steady. "The future of education lies not in profit, but in people. In empowering learners to think critically, to question, to dream." The applause that followed was thunderous. For the first time in years, Sarah felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Chapter 12, A New Beginning. In the months that followed the summit, Sarah stepped back from the spotlight. She returned to teaching part-time in a small, local VR program she helped design using Aurora's tools. Her students came from diverse backgrounds, logging in from rural villages, bustling cities, and even refugee camps. Every lesson reminded her why she had started this journey. When she taught them about ancient civilizations or the wonders of space exploration, she saw the same spark of curiosity she had nurtured in her physical classroom years ago. One afternoon, as she was wrapping up a lesson on the Renaissance, Raj's Phoenix avatar appeared. Now 18, he was volunteering as a mentor in the program. "Miss Carter," he said with a grin, "I got accepted to university. My first choice." Sarah beamed. "Raj, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I wouldn't be here without you, or Aurora, he said. It's changed everything for me and my family. As Raj logged off, Sarah leaned back and gazed at the vibrant virtual landscape of the Aurora platform. She knew the battle for equitable education wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt hopeful about the future. In a world transformed by technology, she had learned a vital truth: progress wasn't about the tools themselves, but how they were used, and who they served. And with that, Sarah logged off, ready to face whatever challenges the future would bring.